Christina, it's so good to have you on the Jewelry Business Academy podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I've really been looking forward to this conversation because obviously I have known you for a few weeks or months now. You've been a dear client of mine in the Jewelry Business Academy, and I'm really excited for you to share your journey and the lessons that you've learned in building your jewelry business, Saint Vagabond Jewelry. So before we dive into all the questions, I would love for you just to give everyone a little intro as to who you are, what you do with Saint Vagabond Jewelry, because I know they're going to really resonate with your story, a lot of them. So do you want to kick us off and just give us a quick little intro and background as to who you are and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I'm Christina. I'm the creator and founder of a brand called Saint Vagabond. I work mostly with lost wax casting, mixed metals, bronze, silver, and gold. And the best way to describe what I do is a modern interpretation of old world adornment.
Mm,
Yeah.
I love that. And how long have you been in business for?
I guess it's been about 5 years. I would say, I started probably around 2015, just learning the ropes, taking some classes, and just striking up an interest in it. And then it slowly evolved. And I thought, actually, I want to make something of this. I want it to be a business. And then
Mm.
2019 started really going for it. And now here we are.
Here we are. It's
Yeah.
your full time. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing before and that transition of starting your business? Because I know we have a lot of people listening or who are going to be listening at some point who are at that stage where you were 5 years ago, making that decision to go and build your business. Like, what made you choose, number one, to build a jewelry business? Why a jewelry business? And like, what were you doing before that? And can you walk us through that transition?
Sure. So I actually started off in film school. That was the one and only thing I wanted to do. I wanted to be like a Natalie Portman, Reese Witherspoon type, have my own production studio, choose scripts, do acting, writing, directing. I wanted to do everything. And after going through film school and loving that experience, I absolutely hated working in the industry. And I really can't explain why, because I obviously still have a lot of love for film, but I just had to be honest with myself that it wasn't for me. And
Mm.
I, I ended up walking away, and a friend of mine suggested she was taking kind of a jewelry 101 class. And she knew I wanted to do something creative. I wanted to get back in there and see what else I can do. And I thought, well, why not? That's super random, but I'm just going to try it. And I
Mhm.
instantly fell in love and just started, taking more and more classes just to learn some skills, even looking on YouTube. And it was interesting to me, kind of funny, that a lot of the things I wanted from film, things that were important to me, were storytelling, building a community, people that you work with. I liked creative problem solving. Yeah, getting with like-minded people, creating that team and working together, traveling, all these different ideas of what I had in mind for myself working in film have now
Mhm.
translated into jewelry. I'm still telling stories, but I'm doing it with metal. I'm still creative problem solving. I'm still creating my own hours, and I'm working with a lot of interesting people on different projects and traveling and meeting people all over the world. So it's funny that it kind of worked out. I got exactly what I wanted in a totally different medium.
I love that so much. It's funny how life sometimes has a funny way of working out for the best. Sometimes maybe we don't see it necessarily at the time, but I love that you shared, like, you were clearly clear on why it was that you were wanting to go into acting, those things that you were chasing. And I think I've been in a very similar position before as well. I used to want to be a vet, which I know is way out from what I do now. This was many, many years ago. And I remember thinking, this is what I want my day to look at like. This is how I want to feel. This is this. And these are the types of people I want to be interacting with. And actually, what I do now fulfills all those whys that I was looking for, just in the completely wrong industry very many years ago. So I love that you shared that, and I love that you found the jewelry industry and you had that courage to go out there and actually like dive into your business. So what was that transition into your business like?
What was it like? I mean, it was slow because, I think it was so innate, like intuitively, I knew there was something there, but I was fighting that belief within myself that, can I make it in a different creative industry? What's going to be different about this thing that I'm interested in doing? For years wanting to work in film and then deciding that's not what I want at all. Am I going to do the same thing with this? Is it going to stick? Is it going to land? Can you make money doing it? You start to second guess, even though you had that really strong gut feeling about it. So it was slow at first. I let it be a hobby. I let it be something I could just enjoy. And then, I would create things in class and I would just wear them out in the world. And people were asking, where can I buy this? I love this. I had friends who worked at stores and they were like, when are you going to make this? We could sell it here. And so I started to feel like, let's just see where this can go. Let's just allow it to go where it wants to go. And yeah, so that it sort of just snowballed from there. And then of course, when 2020 happened, some things kind of changed where I wasn't sure if I should be focusing as much on the creative. I did have a day job at the time. So I just started focusing more on work again. And what was interesting is I had some other creative friends who were freelance, who found themselves with a lot of free time in 2020. And they were going all in on learning new styles, new techniques, adding to their own creative portfolio. The things they had wanted to do and didn't have time to do, they were exploring. And I was watching them blossom and grow. And then as things started to lift, they had a whole new skill set and they were jumping back in. And I thought, okay, I want that. I want that. And so then I started going all in. And that's when a couple of years, I guess it was in 2022 to 2023. Because it's been about a year. Yeah. I just decided to say, F it. I'm quitting my job. I'm going full time. I know I can do this. I'm watching other people do it. And I've always had that mentality of if they can do it, I can do it. Like I champion other people and it was time for me to champion myself. So I guess at that point, then I just went all in and have been trying to go all in every possible way ever since.
I love this so much. I talk all the time about the power of going all in. And sometimes, even on your journey, you probably think at some stages you were all in until you actually decided to go all in like a year and a bit ago. If you can probably look back on your journey and be like, wow, I see the difference in how I showed up, how I talked about my jewelry, how resilient I was when there were challenges. There's a massive shift that happens when you make that conscious decision to go all in and like make it happen. So I'm so glad that you did that. And thank you for sharing that, Jenny, because I know there's going to be people listening who are maybe like thinking they're kind of all in, but it's scary when you think, well, can I make this happen? And I love what you talked about, when you're seeing your friends and seeing all these other people that going out there and making it happen. And what happens to a lot of business owners when they see other successful businesses is they like to come up with excuses for why that person's successful. And they'll say, oh, they're successful, but they have this, or they're better than me, or they have more experience, or they're different in this way. And yeah, maybe they have more experience in different elements and stuff. But the reality is, I know a lot of successful jewelry business owners, and none of them necessarily had any special background. Like, the key traits of these people who are thriving is they just decided to go all in and they gave it their all and they did what's required and they continue to show up even when things are tough. And I love how you framed it as like championing them. So celebrating when you see other businesses thriving. This is what I encourage my clients to do as well. I'm like, when you see somebody winning in business, when you see them thriving, when you see them hitting milestones that are maybe way above where you're at right now, look at that as proof that what you're wanting is possible. And then go out there and do it yourself as well. So you're not falling into that comparison trap, which really like hits your self-worth. You're actually changing and reframing it. And so every day when you see on social media, businesses doing well, people hitting milestones, you're actually consistently retraining your brain to be like, this is great. This is proof that I can do this too. So I really love that. And thank you for sharing. And I'd love to go back a couple of weeks to before you joined the Jewelry Business Academy. Do you remember how you were feeling before we started working together? What kind of challenges were you facing at that stage in your business before you came into the academy?
Yeah. So for me, the main challenges I was facing was holding myself accountable and being consistent. So I could get really good at overthinking, which I'm sure I'm not alone in. And I needed someone to get me out of that loop. And I knew that if I had a coach that I respected her teachings, I resonated with her, I could listen to her, I knew that I would show up differently. I would be able to hold myself accountable knowing that someone was watching, if that makes sense. It's like having, even how in the program we have our business besties, you have someone else, it's another chain, another layer of holding yourself accountable. Having the calls, having, group calls really helped me know, okay, I can stay accountable. And if I'm feeling inconsistent or I'm feeling lazy, then seeing other people showing up in their business and seeing, what they're doing also would motivate me as well. So I knew that would be a factor for me. So yeah, I think entrepreneurship can be very lonely at times. And I had done this by myself for a year. I'd gotten as far as I could on my own. And I recognized my own patterns of self-defeat. And I'm like, this is going to take me a lot longer if I do one step forward, two steps back. It's going to be much better if I have a group, a community, a coach. This will help keep me on track, just moving straight ahead. Just keep going forward.
I love that. I think entrepreneurship has so many benefits and there's so many things I love about it. But one of the things that I think a lot of people are surprised by is how lonely it can be, especially as a designer when you're, in your studio all day, every day, working through challenges a lot on your own. It can be a lonely journey, especially after years of doing it on your own. And then also, I think that thing of kind of having that accountability, it does change how you show up. Because we can only do so much. It takes a lot of energy to consistently hold yourself accountable. Whereas when it's like, there's a group, there's a community, I'm there being like, hey, what's happening here? It does definitely make a difference. So, I'd love to know how you're feeling now. You're still in the early stages, which is why I was like, Christina, come on the podcast. I like bringing my clients on in the early stages, middle, end. Well, there's never an end because you're always growing. But, we don't just want to bring you on like in a year's time when you've hit all these big milestones. We want to bring you on in the early stages as well, just so we can see that growth and transformation. So how are you feeling now? You're still only a few weeks in, but what's your experience been of being in the Jewelry Business Academy and working with me so far?
Well, definitely it's working. The accountability is working, and being consistent is working. And knowing again that every week I'm going to be checking in. So I want to show that I'm showing up. I want to, it's funny. It's like, I think I was always a good student. So I was always wanting that gold star, from my teachers, which is super nerdy, but it's true. So I think that, knowing that I'm going to show up for myself. And then I want to say it, just being in the group and going, okay, like this is what I did for myself, and getting to hear what other people did for themselves. It just keeps the motivation going.
I love that. I think, yeah, it makes a difference in building that momentum every single week, because I'd say business is easy when you go through good seasons, and everyone goes through those good seasons, but it's also a different thing keeping that momentum going. And I think those group calls, and the community definitely has an impact on keeping that momentum going just at a steady pace in the long run, because the long run, it's hard to keep showing up with the same energy, I'd say. So what would you say has been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned since joining the Academy? Putting you on the spot.
Yes. Well, I would say one of the biggest lessons, for one, I would say it's challenging your beliefs. It's challenging your beliefs about yourself. I had recently been reminded that the definition of a belief is just a thought you've practiced over and over again, and then you continue to validate it over and over. So I think challenging the way that you show up for yourself, challenging that belief and going, is this true? Is this even true for me anymore? Is this an outdated version of myself? These, were certain questions I had started to ask myself now, like, how am I showing up? Am I being authentic? What is true for me? Who is the version of myself I want to be? How is she showing up? So I would say something that I'm learning through this practice and being in a group is seeing how I'm showing up, how other people are showing up, how I can support other people, how they support each other. I don't know if I hope this is making sense. But I think, yeah, we have these ideas about who we are, and sometimes they're not true. Like sometimes they're not good beliefs. And I think being a part of a community and seeing other people having some of those same thoughts too, of when they feel really good about their business and then when they don't feel so good, and being able to be there for other people sometimes helps you be there for yourself in your business in a different way as well. There are sometimes where we're on a coaching call, like in the group, and I'm thinking of things that I would say to help this person in their business. I'm listening to the feedback you're giving, and it just gives you a whole other perspective in your business. So I guess as far as a lesson, it's just remembering, be careful what you believe about yourself. Know that you're not alone in that, and continuing to have a community, because as long as you have people who understand what you're going through and understands kind of where you're at in your journey, then it just really helps. It just really helps. Yeah. Period, really.
Yeah, that just gave me chills, because I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with, generally it's women, like it's pretty much always women actually, who will tell me about the dreams they have in building their business. And then they'll say, but I don't actually think I can do it. Like, I actually don't think I can do it. I just don't have that belief in myself. And I just like, they just don't. And it's really hard when you also maybe don't have people in your life who are going to help you shift that belief within yourself. Because as you shared, I actually love that definition. I've never heard it expressed in that way, and it makes so much sense. The feelings that we have, and I think I've spoken about this on a podcast before. The feelings that we have like thousands of fleeting feelings on a daily basis. And sometimes we have the tendency to put so much weight on every single feeling. And if you're doing that consistently over time, and you're putting so much weight on those negative feelings about yourself, it does change your identity and your beliefs within yourself, and it lowers your confidence as well. And I think I love how you shared, like, you know, recognizing that you have the power essentially to create and step into that version of yourself, that higher version of yourself that you think maybe is 10 years away, or maybe is like lifetimes away. You actually have the power to start taking those little steps and actions every single day. And stepping into that person, because I think sometimes people think, oh, these people who are successful or more confident or who take up more space, they just built differently. And so often, like, I know a lot of them, they were people who are really soft spoken before, they were really quiet, they're really, not that you can't be quiet and still take up space, but you know, they're people who had to actively be like, okay, this is who I want to become. I'm going to push through the fear. I'm going to push through the discomfort and kind of continue to step into that. So I love that. I honestly think that's one of my favorite lessons that I've heard shared on the podcast.
Good. Well,
So powerful.
I also think it's important to remember, and that's something I'm learning more and more through this experience of being in the JBA, is that we do everything for the experience of it. Part of the success is the journey to success. It's not where you land, because you're always going to be moving forward. So just remembering that we're doing this for the experience. That's also the importance of taking those action steps. You will never know until you try. And all the knowledge in the world is not wisdom, and it's not experience. You can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts, and until you're actually implementing, then you're just not getting anywhere, and you're not enjoying the ride. And it's just sort of ironic to me when I talk about this, because my brand's tagline is honor the journey. And I wasn't honoring my journey. I was not doing that. I was not honoring my own. So yeah, it's all about the experience. Like when we look back, you know, you want your success to tell a story. And yeah, this story is in the experience. It's in the good times and the hard times. It's in the success and the failures, because failure is just information. It's just saying, hey, this didn't work, redirect. Sometimes it's protection too. So just, you know, yeah, just allow yourself to experience and enjoy all aspects of the experience.
I love this so much, and it does tie very much into your brand. I think it's so interesting how often, like, what we're needing to embrace in our lives is what we reflect through our brands. Because you're not the only one of my clients. Like, a lot of my clients, their kind of tagline for their brand is like embrace more play, or embrace like the journey, or whatever. And it's things that they personally are really trying to embrace themselves, and like being conscious about doing that. So I love how it's so interconnected. And yeah, you know, I think one of the things that came to mind when you were talking about the fact that you can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts, you know, you can have all this knowledge in some way, but unless you're actually implementing it, you're not going to be seeing that growth. And I think I have an episode talking about this, of what I see with a lot of jewelry designers, especially, is there's a lot of overeducated, underachieving designers, because it's easy to read all the books, read all the blogs, listen to all the podcasts, but then actually implementing, actually taking action, showing up, you know, being like, okay, I'm going to read about how to create content, but then actually going and doing that, showing up on video, you know, putting things out there is a different story. And then being able to go through that, move through the fear, move through the discomfort of the different stages of business, because every stage has different blocks that you have to move through. And it's generally our own blocks that we're having to move through, which is so interesting. It's pretty much never your competitors holding you and your business back. It's your own personal blocks that you have to work through, and your own personal beliefs around like what you're capable of, that you have to kind of keep rebuilding as you're growing your business. But that whole journey, that is like, that's our life. That's actually like what matters. The end point, there is no end point. You're so right. And I think people forget about that. So yeah, I love that. And for anyone listening, like, definitely you want to enjoy the journey, and you want to find ways to make it feel connected, make it feel fun, make it, you know, even in the tough seasons, like, have gratitude for those tough seasons. Because I've gone through incredibly tough seasons of business. And I look back with so much gratitude because I recognize that if I hadn't gone through those, I wouldn't have learned the lessons I needed to get to where I am today. And you look back and you're like, wow, like how grateful am I that it didn't work out right off the bat? How grateful am I that this wasn't easy? Because if it had been easy, I would never have been forced to grow into the person I am today. And I'm sure there's so much growth coming. So I don't want to put this out there like we're like, I'm all for growth, but don't send us mountains. But yeah. So what would you say are some wins that you've experienced, big or small, that you've celebrated since joining the JBA?
Well, I think a couple of them. One is consistency for sure. Having shown up on social media more than I wanted to, because, I'm definitely one of those creatives. I just become a little gnome and I'm in my workshop. And I know it's like we need to be filming ourselves, doing things and showing that we're here, we exist, and talking to our audience. And so I was doing that. And then I actually did have a little reel go viral. And so that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I think most of my reels get a few thousand. This one's almost at 2 million.
Incredible.
So, and it's not like, and you can call it a vanity metric because it's not like that just boomed all my sales, but it did grow my audience and it grew my confidence and my excitement about showing up. It made it more fun, to see what's possible and, just to have more fun with it. And then also forcing myself out of my comfort zone, talking to stores again, talking to stores about doing pop-ups as well. So I have now gotten into a few new stores. I'm getting a good amount of wholesale orders now. And that, is major because I had started to resist it and was feeling a bit, not insecure, but just, I don't know, I was holding myself back. Like, is it the right time? And you start to tell yourself these stories again, these beliefs that aren't true. It's like, just do it. Just get out of your head and do it. So yeah, that's something, working through your program. I'm like, okay, these are the things we need to do. Just do it. Just check it off the list. Have the experience. If they say no, it doesn't matter. Again, it's all about just doing the things. And then it's less scary. So I have definitely had some wins from literally pushing through my fears.
I remember when you messaged me about the reel, because I think that was like, it was a B-roll content reel, which had like zero effort put in, if I can say. Like it was a very low effort reel. And I just love that it's done so well and it has helped grow your audience a little bit. But yeah, it's such a good thing for people to recognize, because I know some people think, oh, if I go viral, that's the key to like my business blowing up overnight. And yeah, there's a few businesses that will happen to, but generally that's not going to blow up any jewelry businesses overnight, but it will grow your audience. It will build your confidence. We do want to keep like driving more visibility. And it does build that excitement as well. So I love that. And then, I also remember, I don't know if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I think you sent me a message because we had chatted about talking about your pieces or one of the reviews or whatever. And you shared something about that on social. And I think immediately you got some sales from that, which was, I think you had some blocks around creating that content, if I remember. And then you messaged me and you're like, it worked.
It did. And, going back to the fact that part of what was interesting to me about doing jewelry was the storytelling aspect. And I feel so fortunate that I do have customers who want to reach out and share their story. They have a story. They have a reason why they wear the piece. They have special things that have happened while they're wearing the piece. And I'm so grateful to get those messages, anytime I'm sitting here thinking, because we all have those moments of like, is what I'm doing meaningful? Does it matter? You know? And then you get a message like that, where, that girl reached out and shared a very heartfelt story about what my ring meant for her. And I was blown away, and it made me feel so great. I mean, the message is the win. The sales were like the cherry on top.
Yeah. Yeah, that message was beautiful. And I think, yeah, I love that. And I think one of the things I'd encourage anyone listening to this to do is, so often you will get really beautiful messages from customers, and a lot of artists will hold back from sharing that because they feel like that's being pushy, it's being salesy, it's maybe cheapening the message. And I want to encourage anyone listening to like celebrate those messages that you get from your customers and share those and acknowledge those, because if they're taking the time to share a message like that, it's wonderful to celebrate it, it's wonderful to share it, and it's not cheapening those messages by using them also as a way to market your business and your art. So yeah, for anyone listening, little hot tip for you. But Christina, I'd love to know, like, for anyone listening who's maybe in the early stages of their business, or they where you were a couple of months ago, or where you were 5 years ago, who is thinking of joining the Jewelry Business Academy, what would you say to them about joining?
I would say do it sooner than later. I think a lot of people, myself included, had thought, well, maybe I should get to a certain stage and then I'll get help. But if you think about it, it doesn't really make sense, because you want help. You want the help now. You want the help. There's no reason to wait on getting the help that you need. And as I had mentioned before, the journey can be lonely when you're a solopreneur. So having someone in your corner, having someone who's been where you've been, who's experienced where you want to go, it's completely valuable. It's obviously, I have no words. It's just so obvious. It just makes all the difference. I had gotten as far as I could on my own, and even just being in the program for a few weeks, it has already changed how I show up for my business, how I feel about my business, how I feel about myself in business. So it's remarkable. And again, having the community as well. I know when I was researching into the JBA, listening to some of the testimonials, feeling like these are people I can relate to. These are people I would love to be on calls with once a week. Listening to your reels and your podcasts, I thought, okay, this is someone who I resonate with. This is someone I would like to get advice from. This is someone I would like to talk to once a week. So yeah, if you're thinking about it, it's an investment in yourself and your growth in your business. So yeah, I would jump in. You don't want to be the same place last year as what's that saying? You don't want to be in the same place that you were in a year from now. And time can just fly. So I would say do it sooner than later. You won't regret it. No one can ever regret investing in themselves.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I have to agree, our community is very special. Like I really look forward to our group calls, because I think we just have such a incredible community of people. Like they get on so well. Everyone seems to get on so well. They're so warm. They're so supportive of one another, and they're all in on their business, and all in looks different for different business owners, but they're all committed to the process. They're all committed to the journey. They're all committed to showing up despite the fear, and like supporting one another along the way as well. So thank you for sharing that, Christina. Is there anything else that you would like to share that we haven't touched on?
Like, I'm sure there is. There's always something to talk about.
You know what? I actually do have one last question if you want to think about that.
Sure.
But I'd love to know, what would you say has been the biggest lesson that you've learned since starting your jewelry business?
This may sound very cliche, but trust the process. Trust that there's a reason that things happen the way they do. And I don't know, be in more of a state of allowing. I think something that I have learned as a person and, as a business owner is the more I try to control an outcome, the more I try to micromanage myself, the worse things go. I think, trust your gut, trust that very small voice inside of you, and just let things flow and see where they can actually take you. Because quite often things can be even better than you could imagine. So if you let yourself overthink and think small, then you're not going to get very far. So challenge your beliefs, change your beliefs, kind of flow into it and see where things can take you. That's very esoteric, but whatever. That's part of who I am too. So.
I love it. And it actually just reminded me of a quote that we had a guest at our high school graduation like a million years ago. And I remember she was like 10 years ahead of us, and she came back to give the graduation speech. And she said, reality is better than your dreams. Like the dreams that you have for your life and yourself right now, reality is 10 times better. Like, so have those dreams, go out and chase them. But the reality, like let yourself grow into like new dreams and let yourself grow into like the reality of what's kind of opportunities open up for you and what path you find yourself on. Because I find the reality is actually so much bigger than your dreams. And sometimes our dreams can keep us boxed in a little bit because we're like, oh, this is the version of myself. But I'm going off track here. That was beautiful though. Christina, this has been so much fun chatting to you. Thank you for joining me and sharing your advice and your lessons that you've learned over the past few years in building your jewelry business. I know for sure we're going to have listeners who are going to feel very inspired and excited about your story and hearing your story, and they're going to want to follow along on your journey and Saint Vagabond's journey as well. So where can our listeners find you and how can they support you?
Well, you can find me at Saint Vagabond Jewelry on Instagram. And it's also saintvagabond.com online if you want to see examples of the work that I do.
Amazing. And we'll drop all of those in the show notes so you guys can go and head over to Christina's Instagram and website and check those out and connect with her. And I just want to make sure I didn't miss any questions on Instagram. Give me 1 second. No, I think we're all good. So this has been so much fun. Thank you so much, Christina. And I'm looking forward to bringing you back on in a couple of months to hear how your journey's been at that point, all the milestones that you're celebrating and lessons that you've learned through the next few months of business.
Yes, looking forward to it.